Spamton Neo Hitless. It all started when I decided to start grinding on Ink Game. You see, I had been playing for a good while at this point, attempting to get the first ending after rebelling and nearly killing the front man. I entered the queue and everything seemed completely normal, but upon entering the lobby, something caught my eye. And there he was, Spamton. After just recently completing Deltarune Chapters 1 and 2, I was overjoyed. I was ready to put my differences aside after beating the ever-living shit out of him and working together. But it was clear he didn't feel the same way. He still must have held some resentment toward me. I made it to red light, green light, disappointed, heartbroken, and alone. I was no longer looking for friendship anymore. This was personal. This was war. I ran through red light, green light with ease, but I was still thinking about why Spamton would reject my companionship. And then I saw him. TV Guy. I'd seen this character on the thumbnails of my YouTube feed, and I knew he was associated with the newer chapters of Deltarune, chapters I had yet to play. Upon seeing him, I screamed out, "Spoilers!" Being a character from Chapter 3 meant he was basically a walking spoiler machine. He hadn't even said a single word yet, but I knew I had to kill him. It's like the saying, a painting paints 1,000 words. If Spamton was the puppet, then TV Guy had to be the puppet master. If I was going to win and save myself from spoilers, I needed to end TV Guy's life. I completed Dalgona with ease, and right before Lights Out began, I threatened TV Guy. He remained silent, seemingly his way of showing me he was unfazed by my threat, but that didn't matter to me. I was going to kill him all the same. I followed Spamton and TV Guy as they climbed the beds onto the top bunk. I watched them from across my bed until Lights Out finally began. Then I made my move. I knew the challenge I was in for. Spamton and TV Guy were surely going to try and kill me once I attacked, but I didn't care. TV Guy had to go, and nobody was going to stop me. I chased TV Guy across the entire room and even got a few hits in, despite Spamton's interference. But it wasn't enough. The timer reached 0, and Lights Out ended, with TV Guy still alive. I yelled, "Spamton can't protect you forever." TV Guy ignored me, but then Spamton looked back at me with this stare of disappointment and pity. I was doing all this to try and kill TV Guy, thinking him to be the real threat to me and my win, assuming him to be the more intelligent and aware of the two. But as he stared, I started to wonder. Maybe Spamton is the one I should be looking out for. Perhaps there was more to him than I thought. It gives me chills even thinking about it. We moved on to the third game where the majority decided to vote hide and seek. Good. If I was lucky enough, maybe I'd get Seeker, and maybe my Op TV Guy would get Hider. I got my gumball, cherry flavored. Amazing. Spamton was also on my team. Considering how Seeker-sided the game mode is, I'd definitely be seeing more of him. Then I noticed something. TV Guy was gone. That meant he got Hider. Even more amazing. The game began, and I immediately got to work looking. I searched in all my usual spots downstairs, but TV Guy was nowhere to be seen. The timer waits for no one, though. As it kept counting down, I realized that if I wanted to survive this game, I'd have to settle for killing some random. So I got my kill and spent the rest of the round searching for TV Guy, with no success. Wherever he was hiding, it must have been a god-tier spot. I walked out of hide and seek disappointed. The stars were aligned, and everything had been lined up for the perfect kill, and I wasted it. But then, we got teleported back to the lobby. I saw Spamton, but no TV Guy. Spamton and TV Guy had been basically inseparable this entire time. So where was he? Was it possible someone found him and got the kill? I decided to mockingly tell Spamton the news, hoping to crush his spirit before the next game. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, TV Guy. He had survived and was also continuing on to the next game. I was disappointed, to say the least. But that disappointment soon turned into hope. Glass Bridge was a mostly luck-based game, and maybe, if I pressured him enough, he'd go one too many times and die. One can only hope. As we walked to Glass Bridge, I was questioned on why I had been trying so hard to kill Spamton and his friend. This question made me reflect on everything before. I had my reasons, but not wanting to reveal my true intentions, I simply responded, I needed a goal. I was validated for my answer, even by TV Guy, but I quickly shut him up. They accepted it, and, honestly, it wasn't even entirely untrue. This entire time I had been working towards something. But what if I hadn't? What if I was a slightly more mature person who didn't take Spamton's rejection to heart, ignored TV Guy entirely, and simply continued on as normal, only powered by the natural human instinct to survive? Would I still be alive right now? Had this goal, this pettiness-turned determination, been the only reason I was still here? With so few people left, I started to wonder, was my goal even possible? Spamton and TV Guy were obviously good players. They not only beat every game before this, but also survived me actively trying to sabotage and kill them. But I kept going. What choice did I have? I couldn't let all the sacrifices made for me to be here go to waste. At this point, we had only crossed a few tiles. Progress slowed. No one wanted to go. I had already completed a tile myself, so I then asked the people on my panel to go. Everyone was reluctant. And then, like a gift from above, someone not even on the tile stepped up for the rest of us and cleared a bunch of panels before eventually falling to their death. We all paused to appreciate the sacrifice he made for us before deciding to continue. We were down to 5 people. 4 of us standing on one tile, while a person named Kwani sat in the tile behind us. Seeing nobody wanting to go, I attempted to pressure Spamton and TV Guy into stepping forward. And then, my fears turned to reality. In response to asking him to go, TV Guy revealed his name to actually be Tenna. Shit. Fuck. I had been attempting to avoid any knowledge about chapters 3 and 4, and Tenna had to come and ruin everything. I was furious. I sat there, stunned. But then I thought, a name is just a name, a tiny detail. Maybe he didn't even know that I hadn't played those chapters yet. After all, they'd been out for a couple weeks already. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Anger turned to acceptance. My head cleared. We crossed some more panels, and then King died trying to complete one. I had absolutely no connection to this person, and I could honestly care less about his death. His death caused Kwani to step up to the panel we were standing on, and I urged him to go, as he had been mostly staying behind and leeching off our work this entire time. He went and survived. And with that, we had completed the glass bridge with 4 people left. Me, Kwani, Spamton, and Tenna. I was happy to be alive, but I was scared of what was next. Mingle. We had 4 players, and 2 needed to die. And in Mingle, you have the ability to chokehold a player and kill them. Having both Spamton and TV Guy against me would most likely result in my death. So, I asked to team up and settle the beef. I expected them to respond respectfully. After all, that was how they had presented themselves thus far, as respectful people. Only working in self-defense against me and my attempts to end their lives. But I was then hit with no. Clearly a typo for no. They then doubled down by calling me a third wheel. The fuck? I mean, I had gone into asking the question expecting a no. After all, it wouldn't make sense to bring in a third teammate if one of you has to die anyway. But calling me a third wheel? That was too far. I didn't care about logic or spoilers anymore. I had been rejected for the final time. I was going to win, even if the whole server was against me. I entered Mingle and we spun around while shitty music played until we were asked to enter rooms of 3. I ran into the same room as everyone else in a panic. We had 4 people. Someone had to die. I sat in the corner of the room out of fear while watching the chaos that ensued in front of me. Everybody was jumping around and trying to choke each other. I shouted, "We all dying!" Then, Kwani choked out Tenna, just like that. This left us with 3 people. Enough to pass this round. As the round ended, I stared in realization of what had just happened. The person I'd been trying to kill this whole time, killed by a side character, and I only had myself to blame. I had survived out of cowardice, but I had survived nonetheless. And that meant I had to keep going. We spun around again. This time we were asked to get into rooms of two. Me, Spamton, and Kwani all ran into the same room, where we all stood in our respective corners. Me in the top right, Spamton in the top left, and Kwani in the bottom left, all waiting for the others' moves. Me and Spamton understood the assignment. We took turns choking out Kwani until he died. If I was going to kill Spamton, it was not going to be some cheap shot. It was going to be a big shot. As we stood in the room, Kwani's body on the floor, I told Spamton, "The next game is where it ends. Only one of us makes it out." We were teleported back to the lobby, now wearing suits and ties. Spamton exclaimed, "I look ravishing!" At least he was ready. I would be lying if I said I was. But I had to do this. Everything would have to end somehow. And so, powered by determination, I pressed on to the final game. As we walked, the pressure hit. I had spent hours upon hours attempting to win the games, only to be met with defeat. But now, I was here. Evenly matched, level 20 versus level 20. If I was going to win, it'd be right here, right now. I tried to joke to hide how nervous I was, but Spamton then reminded me why we were here. He chose to treat this final game as a final act of self-defense against me, reminding me that I had taken the initiative to try to kill us first. Us. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for his fallen brother. I had made it here out of pettiness, hatred, towards people I barely knew. His intentions were greater, more noble, more than mine could ever hope to be. Despite my trials and tribulations, it was clear he deserved this win much more than I did. But was I going to let that stop me? Of course fucking not. And then, it was over. I had held out hope till the last second, but in the end I was knocked outside and killed by the guards, not even getting the satisfaction of dying by his hand. Tenna cheered him on. It was a big shot win. I stared in disbelief. I had vowed to kill both Tenna and Spamton, but in the end I could not kill either. Every choice I had made, every missed opportunity I had let slip past me, it all led to this moment of complete disappointment and failure. I had somehow convinced myself this game was different from the others. But no, this was simply another failure to add to my countless others. I had been defeated before, but not like this. This was true defeat. Any hope or motivation to keep playing was gone. I returned to the lobby, broken. But then, I saw someone innocent and inexperienced. He reminded me of myself when I first started playing. He had no wins. He had joined the queue by himself. There were 46 other people just as determined and driven as him to win. But he was still filled with that hope. Maybe it wasn't the front man who ran these games. Maybe it was that hope. That hope that pushed so many players into joining these games despite the risks. And maybe what you hoped for isn't what you really wanted. And that's okay. You can't control everything in your life, no matter how hard you might try to. And sometimes, all you can do is hope. And as I stood there, a new hope formed in me. A hope that, you'll watch fucking Squid Games, Sammy. You want me to play chapters 3 and 4? Well, fuck you. There is no Spamton Neo Hitless. That's right. In case you couldn't tell, this was all an elaborate scheme to get you to watch Squid Games. So you better turn on that TV and get your ass some fucking Count Chocula because you are watching Squid Games whether your retarded ass likes it or not. Anyway, subscribe for Jevil No Hit.